Welcome to the Kino Cave, and today I'm back with the X-Men reviews talking about X2, X-Men United. Weird title, but okay. So for ages, this was like my favorite comic book movie of all time, or at least it was up there anyway with like The Dark Knight and Spider-Man 2. Um, it's really, really good. It might not quite be that because, stuff like The Batman came out and things like that. So it's probably a little bit further down the list by now, but this is still a damn good movie. I always go into X-Men 2 thinking, is it really going to hold up? This is a movie from like 2002 or 3. Is it going to hold up? And sure enough, it does. It's just a really good movie. It's really hard to find flaws with this movie. Aside from the style maybe being a bit dated, considering the landscape of the superhero movies now, but I still think there's a lot of greatness here. This film improves on the previous in pretty much every single aspect, and I'm going to go over that a little bit throughout the ways that this film follows on from the previous and improves aspects of the previous film, which is really what any great sequel does. It takes what was done right in the first film and improves it and continues it. I mentioned this in my previous X-Men video, but I may as well mention it again. I'm going to be talking about it a lot, unfortunately, throughout these X-Men reviews, but none of my praise to this film is directed at Bryan Singer. Once again, the guy's a piece of shit. Look into it if you want, but none of my praise goes towards him, and I'm not going to be mentioning him again throughout this video. Any of my praise for this film comes from the cast and the rest of the crew. One aspect of this film that I loved straight from the start is the focus on characters rather than themes. The themes established in the first X-Men are absolutely excellent and they are continued here, but they've been established. It's time to focus on the characters. Characters are reintroduced into this film with minimal dialogue, which I absolutely love. You get an expansion of their personalities, and even more so than in the previous film. Like with Scott and Jean, their love for each other is hammered home much more in the first few seconds of their scene together. The kids, Bobby and Rogue and Pyro, they are fleshed out even more, and their personalities are fleshed out even more, especially with Bobby and Pyro. We know who Rogue is at this point, so she's just there to keep doing her thing, and we'll get more of her character arc later. But Bobby and Pyro, we need to get those personalities nailed down. Professor X comes in, and straight away you know what he's about. He's an authority figure, and Patrick Stewart's excellent performance continues here from the previous film. And I don't know what it is, but I love Wolverine in the snow. It's just something about it just looks right to me. It's really visually interesting, and I love the transition as you transition from Wolverine's face into the wolf's face. It just perfectly establishes his character arc throughout this film. From this point on, I may as well mention that there are going to be spoilers for this movie throughout. The movie's over 20 years old at this point, so I'm just going to be getting into full spoilers. I love the monologue at the beginning. I love how it's continued throughout the series, and especially this one is really excellent when Professor X is talking about, humanity's capabilities of understanding things that are different and all that sort of stuff. It's excellent. Followed by an excellent opening credits sequence, which I miss so much in movies nowadays. And then followed by the White House assault, which is just a great opener. It's so good with the classical music playing in the background and Nightcrawler just being perfectly established with excellent action sequences. An excellent action sequence. And of course, thematically, it works as well. It's an assault on the White House. You don't need to be, a genius to figure out what the themes are there. And I would know, I am not a smart man. So this review is going to be a little bit sporadic. I'm going to talk about kind of plot points and story points, then I'm going to move on to kind of characters, and at the end, I'm going to talk a bit more about the filmmaking. So it's going to be a little bit all over the place, but another thing I'd just like to mention is like the side character kids with like weird powers that in some aspects are useful and in some aren't. Like the weird tongue kid. I saw a review on Letterboxd. It was really funny. Where it's like, can that kid do anything else, or is that it? Because man, he really got the short end, didn't he? When his entire he's working with people who can fire lasers out their eyes, and he can just stick out a weird tongue. And then there's like the TV changing kid who can't sleep or doesn't sleep, and he just changes the TV channel with his eyes all the time. And like there's the kid in the bed that just screams really loud. That's a pretty useful power, to be fair. That's like a common superhero power. The talent in this, in terms of actors, is absolutely incredible. You've got Patrick Stewart, Ian McKellen, Hugh Jackman, Anna Paquin, Halle Berry, James Marsden, Brian Cox, for Christ's sakes. Who else? Alan Cumming. Like, there's a lot of weird names like Cox and Cumming, but what excellent acting chops these guys have. And to see them all in a film together and acting across from each other is just brilliant casting. Absolutely excellent. I also love how at several points throughout the film they take a break from the action and focus in on the characters. Like, you have a lot of action, especially around the middle from when they leave Bobby's house. And then after they meet Magneto, the film gets to slow down and expand the characters and really set in stone their relationships. It's really, really good pacing. While praising the pacing in the kind of first and second act, in the third act, it does start to get paced kind of strangely. You have like a lot of action in a row, and then you get back to plot points that it's just messy. You have kind of too much action for one block, and then you slow down and get to like a lot of plot, and then you have to go back to the action and back to the plot, and it's all a bit sporadic and it's not evenly paced. And unfortunately, that is a bit of a letdown. I did find myself getting kind of bored towards the end of this film. While a lot of the content of it was great, it just wasn't quite edited together very well. Unfortunately, Jean Grey and Cyclops and Storm, they have very little character development. And it's weird because Jean and Scott get a lot at the beginning and a lot at the end, but absolutely nothing in the middle. And Storm still has no character development. Especially because I'm watching through the 90s X-Men cartoon. I'm seeing a lot more of Storm's character in that. And it's really highlighting how little character she has throughout the X-Men films, which is unfortunate. I would love to see when the MCU eventually does like an X-Men thing. I really want to see more from Cyclops, Storm, and Jean Grey because we got so little of them in this series. Back to the positives, the scene with the President, which I have a screenshot picture behind me. It's just of Iceman, but it's that scene. The scene with the President is absolutely excellent. I love, again, thematically, it really works, having Professor X talk down to the President and, tell him what the fuck is happening. Like, we are here, we are not going anywhere, get used to it. You can see parallels, you can see themes all over that scene and many other scenes throughout, but it's absolutely excellent. The acting from everybody in it is excellent, and it's great, so great seeing these X-Men all standing together in their Matrix leather suits and just standing there heroically. It's really great because you don't get a lot of that throughout these movies. Just seeing a bunch of X-Men standing together and just looking great. Getting into characters now, Brian Cox is such an inspired choice for William Stryker. He's so threatening. I watched Manhunter recently. His performance in that, even though it's only like 2 scenes, absolutely brilliant. Brian Cox is an absolutely fantastic actor, and he's so threatening in this, especially when you find out about his son and the whole deal with that, where he basically like experimented on him and everything. It makes him so threatening and so heartless and cold, and he's such an excellent villain. Ian McKellen is on top of his game here as Magneto. What an excellent character. So much expansion of him throughout this film. His scenes with Professor X are still among the best in the whole series. And yeah, Ian McKellen as this character is just fantastic throughout. You see so much more of his personality in this now that he's not a main villain and he's more kind of on the side. Yeah, absolutely brilliant. You see so much of Magneto's manipulation in his scene with Pyro when he's, kind of almost gaslighting Pyro into thinking that he's like, a step above everybody. And of course, there is some truth to that. That's what makes Magneto such an interesting character, is that there is some truth to the idea that, of course, the idea is that mutants are the next step in the evolutionary chain, and on paper, yes, they are better than humans, but That's not necessarily for Magneto to decide. Just seeing his worldview come through in that scene with Pyro is absolutely brilliant. One thing though, and it's purely a me thing, it's really funny seeing Eric Lencher be like really horny for Mystique, because he is throughout this film really horny for Mystique, and that's absolutely fine. But when he's being played by Ian McKellen, like openly gay actor, and when you have the context of later films like X-Men First Class, it really kind of establishes undertones of Charles Xavier and Eric Lencher kind of being like a romantic couple, sort of. There's definitely allegories there. So it's really funny in these early X-Men movies seeing him be like really all over Mystique. It's just funny to me. Like, I don't really care whether or not Magneto's gay or straight, but in my head, this version at least of Magneto has always kind of been homosexual, especially considering how Michael Fassbender and James McAvoy play each character in later films. So I don't know, it's just really funny to me. I thought I'd mention it since it's a thought I had while watching the film. I'm like, this is really weird. Is Magneto not meant to be gay? I feel like Hugh Jackman's portrayal of Logan really is secured in this film as like the main character of this series. I absolutely love that Logan is the main character of this series, but when you have like a team movie like this, and you know this whole series is focused on a team, I do think that it would be best in kind of, you know, future X-Men reboots, we focus a little less on Wolverine. Have him be kind of like, you know, Batman in the animated Justice League series, where he kind of takes a step back. He's not always there, and you get to focus on the other characters. I think that would be the best way to go in films going forward with the X-Men, like the newer X-Men movies. Definitely less of a focus on Wolverine, more of a focus on Cyclops, Jean, Storm, Professor X, Iceman, all these guys. Because there's so many X-Men out there, and it would be great to see more of a focus on them rather than just always kind of Wolverine being the main character. I do think though that Wolverine has kind of become the main character of this series largely due to Hugh Jackman's performance. He is an absolute standout here. His relationship with Rogue matures a lot. You can see that from their very first scene, that it has really been secured as more of a father-daughter kind of relationship, or even like a, say, uncle to niece kind of relationship. He very clearly feels responsible for her. And it's kind of upsetting when you see that Rogue kind of get completely shafted after like the third movie. I know that you've got the Rogue cut of X-Men Days of Future Past, which is great, but I kind of do miss that like parental almost relationship that Logan and Rogue have. It really speaks to Logan, which I will talk about eventually, when he has a biological daughter and he can kind of, you know, impart his parental instincts on her. Yeah, I really like seeing this in the earlier films, and I know that it's kind of going to fade out in later movies, which is kind of annoying. I also love how his relationship with Iceman kind of begins. Again, this is one that isn't really explored after this movie, but I think that Hugh Jackman and, I forget this guy's name, the actor who plays Iceman, I'll put his name here, but I love Logan and Bobby's relationship in this film, and I know that it's not really present in any of the other films, but I think it really works. It's kind of that like hard ass, you know, father of the girlfriend for Bobby, where it's like it's just kind of funny, like, you know, their interactions, because Logan's obviously being a hard ass because he's so protective of Rogue, and Iceman's just, forgive the pun, but he's really chill about it.
God, I hate myself.
I think Logan's character is definitely defined in the X-Mansion attack. I'll talk about the filmmaking of it later, but yeah, I mean, this inspires like the screaming and running that he does a lot throughout these movies, and yeah, it really establishes him as the standout character, and that's all down to Hugh Jackman. And I love how at the end Logan finalizes his arc across the first two films by removing his dog tags and throwing them on the ground, letting go of his past and moving on. He's a new person now, he's an X-Man, and he's ready to fully embrace that. His past does not matter anymore. Too bad the studio didn't see it that way, but this is what we got. Talking a little bit about Iceman, I think he's a really excellent character in this. I know he gets a bit more in the next film as well, which I'll cover in a couple of weeks, but I really like Iceman's character in this movie. I think he has a lot to do, and it is kind of funny that he has the coming out allegory scene. When I think it was before the character of Iceman came out as gay in the comic books. Um, that's just an interesting thing that happened. It's kind of a funny thing. I will fact check that, but if I've not corrected it in a text bubble here, then yeah, Iceman basically had a coming out scene in X Men 2 before the character in the comic books came out as gay. Speaking on that scene, there's really not much I can say about it because everyone's talked about that scene. It's an excellent theme. I'm pretty sure Ian McKellen had a hand in the writing of it, and I know that across social media and stuff, a lot of gay people have related to that scene where Iceman has to reveal to his parents that he's a mutant, and the way his parents react is very much indicative of a conservative household. When they ask him, can he try not being a mutant, and they keep calling it a problem when it really shouldn't be. I mean, your son has freaking superpowers here. Like, he can chill your beer for you whenever you want. That's incredible. And they somehow have an aversion to that when there's nothing wrong with it. And of course, it's a good thing that Iceman is, that Bobby is a mutant. And of course, there's so many parallels there that you can draw, and I'm not going to focus too much on it because I haven't had that experience. I am straight, so I can't really speak to that sequence with the authority that a gay person might. So I'm not going to talk too much more about it. Just to talk a little bit about one, the opening credits, which I absolutely love. I miss it so much. I mentioned it in the previous movie, and I'll keep mentioning it whenever I talk about a movie that has a great opening credits sequence. I miss that type of thing in movies. Just a bit of a spectacle. It makes the film feel more like an event. Like you're going to see like something operatic. I don't. That's not to say I want it in every movie. I certainly don't. But in kind of bombastic movies like this, I like seeing it. And I also want to talk about John Ottman's incredible score. I absolutely love the X-Men theme in this. Of course, it's no da 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 da, but it's absolutely fantastic. I think it's in my gym playlist or something. It's really a theme song that gets me hyped, and I love how it comes back in Days of Future Past, and I think Apocalypse uses it as well. I love how Cerebro is used here as a device. Cerebro is so cool. I mentioned that in the previous video, and it's used as a major plot point because I keep going to say the actor's name, Brian Cox. William Stryker rebuilds Cerebro, and I love the effect of because you don't really see it in the previous film, but the effect of all the white dots being mutant or being human, all the red dots being mutants, and that's something that they would do kind of throughout the series. I absolutely love all that. Cerebro is such a fucking cool machine. I haven't mentioned Mystique yet, so I'll talk about it here in more of the filmmaking section. Rebecca Romijn is an excellent Mystique. It's kind of sad that after the next film we don't really see her anymore. We switch over to Jennifer Lawrence, who was good in like one and a half of the X-Men movies and then got really lazy. I like Jennifer Lawrence. I like No Hard Feelings, but I don't know. She just seems kind of lazy to me. She got her Oscar and then she was just like, I'm done. I peaked. And come on, Jennifer Lawrence, give a bit of a shit sometimes. But yeah, the makeup is absolutely brilliant. Like seeing close-ups of her fingers and just various close-ups throughout like her face and her hair and the rest of her body. You can just see the detail in the makeup there, which I really, really love. I'm a big kind of makeup and costuming guy when it comes to movies. I love seeing the intricate details and stuff in the costuming and stuff like that. And Mystique's full body makeup on Rebecca Romijn, absolutely brilliant. And full props to Rebecca Romijn for going through that every single day and giving a fantastic performance in it. And the CGI effects of her changing, really good for the time, honestly. The fight with Lady Deathstrike is fucking brutal. Like, you can see why it kind of became a popular thing for Wolverine to just go, holy shit. It's an absolutely brutal fight. I love seeing Wolverine fight with someone who's kind of evenly matched with him. And it's so brutal how he, like, finishes her off. That sounds dirty. It's so brutal how he like kills her at the end, like when he just stabs her in the gut with the adamantium. It's like, oh god, like it's goddamn Wolverine. Like he's fucking brutal. Yeah, probably best fight scene in. I don't know, every fight scene in this movie is the best fight scene. Like But the Lady Deathstrike fight is definitely like top two fight scenes throughout the entire film. All in all, I cannot believe I managed to get through this entire review in less than 30 minutes, but this film still holds up for me. Yeah, I gave it like a 4.5 stars. You know, the pacing is a bit weak, some of the characters aren't fleshed out enough, but I mean, overall, this is still such a really enjoyable film. And there's a reason why I keep coming back to it. It's just really great. A lot of the characters are really great. Logan, Bobby, Rogue, Professor X, and Magneto. Brian Cox's Stryker. There's so much greatness to be found in this early 2000s superhero movie, and something that's missing a lot from later films is the subtext and the thematic weight of them. You know, films nowadays, especially superhero movies, are so in your face about its themes in case the idiots in the back don't get it. And it's really annoying. You want to see it handled well? Watch X2 X-Men United. It explores these kind of real life allegories and memes. Memes? Themes. Themes. It explores them really, really well. I'm tripping over my words now. I'm parched. I need to get a drink of water. Go watch X2 X-Men United if you've not seen it in a while. And I hope you have a great day.